So hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. It is time for another interview chat style video, and today's guest was an absolute delight. I think we're all still reeling from episode 2 of The Ones Who Live, and I got to sit and talk to the wonderful Matthew Jeffers who played Nat. Listen, there's so much I could say about Nat as a character after a one episode arc, but after talking to Matthew, I don't know. Do you ever just see somebody that just lives for their art, breathes for it, and it's just clear that they are in it? It's so clear to see why so many people connected with Nat as a character. Yeah, it was a mixture of great writing and fantastic storytelling, but an awful lot of that connection came from Matthew. He just he blew me away with some of the stories and takes that he had regarding Nat as a character, the Walking Dead universe as a whole, and his own personal stories, experiences, like how he got his start, how he ended up here. This is why I love doing this style of video, because I love hearing people's stories. I love listening to people talk. And when I see someone that is just so passionate and beautiful, it's just nothing tops that. So again, big thank you to Matthew for sitting and talking all things for almost an hour. Such a beautiful soul. Also, like, I do a lot of these videos, right? I'm lucky enough to have done a lot of these videos, and I still have some in the works that will hopefully come to pass. But Matthew was just an absolute delight to talk to, and such a personable person. I mean, like, even asking me about my brother's band, which was like, wow, thank you for caring. I wasn't expecting that, so I think I actually forgot to name my brother's band. I forgot to give their name. They're called Lightarian, so when we're talking about them later in the video, they're called Lightarian, if you're interested. But yeah, such a beautiful, beautiful soul, lovely person, and it's so clear the passion that's there. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you want to hear all things Walking Dead, Ones Who Live, Nat's character, then here is my conversation with Matthew. So before we get on to talking about The Ones Who Live, it's this little show, you mightn't have heard of it, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that we would start with where all of this started for you. So how did you get into acting? How did you get into that world? Is it something that you knew that you wanted to do?
Um, no. I was kind of a jock growing up. I was just obsessed with basketball and baseball and just being on any court I could be on. And when it was apparent that that wasn't going to be a career for me, my mom was the one to come to me in around eighth grade. Uh, she came and she was like, you're such a great storyteller. You're so animated. I think you would find yourself on the stage. I think you would be great on stage. And I was like, I don't want to be with those theater kids. Like they're the weirdest kids in my grade. Mother knows best. And that's the case for me. She knew where I belonged like years before I knew where I belonged. And so I acquiesced in eighth grade. I did Charlie Brown. It was my first like official show. um, Official show, middle school show. Um, and I played Schroeder. And it was just like, the classical curtain down applause, and it's that rush that I'll never forget. And from that moment on, it was really just like that was my career, that was my future. I only applied to one college. I knew that what I was going to major in that college, so it was all very kind of detailed and laid out for me, what my future was going to look like. And so, yeah.
That's so interesting that you knew from such a young age and that you were kind of zoned in on it.
I think it was, after my mom successfully convinced me to give it a shot, and I did, it was just like a lightning bolt. It was one of those moments where I was like, yeah, this feels right. And I think really from the beginning, and this sounds egotistical, and I don't mean it to be, but from really like that first show, I had people, family and friends, anyone who saw those shows come up and was like, you should continue doing this, even at that young age. They were like, this, you're great, you should continue. If you want to, you should continue this. And so, when you're a young kid searching for your place in the world, searching for like how you fit in and what this all looks like, to have that like crystalline uh guidance, right? And like that direction from outside perspective is really valuable to have when you're kind of searching for direction. And I had that like very clearly and brazenly, and that I'm grateful for that, because that was like, yeah, of course, if you are enjoying it and I'm enjoying it, then we should continue to keep doing this together. Audience actor relationship.
That's gorgeous. And I can kind of relate a small bit. My brother, he's in a band. And I remember
Mm,
after his first show, he came off and I remember his hands were shaking and he came up to me and he was like, I want to do that every night for the rest of my life.
yeah, that's it. It's the drug. It's like the first
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Um, but then moving kind
what
of,
kind of band?
huh?
What kind of band? Like
Oh,
what
I'm
genre?
so glad that you asked. They're a rock band. So think, U2.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
You might have heard of the small kind of band
Yeah,
U2.
indie, yeah,
It's very
yeah.
unknown, yeah.
Yeah, very
Um,
good.
yeah, they're
Very
kind of pop rock, all to bit of everything. They're not signed at the moment, so it's kind of
okay.
fallen to certain people to, pitch them to people or booking gigs. Oh my God, booking
Yeah,
gigs.
yeah, I know. That's a grind, I'm sure. I'm
Oh, we'll
sure.
get them there though. They're definitely. I'm not just saying it because I'm biased. I am biased.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I know that they're worth it. I mean, bless them, they're what, their early 20s? There's only
Oh,
three of them in the band, and yeah, we'll get them there, definitely. That just knocked me off my train of thought because I was just thinking, like, I do this for a living, social media, videos, and then he's in a band, and we always joke with my parents, we're like, we're so sorry. We're so sorry that neither of us picked a regular job that would be easy for you.
were your parents in kind of traditional careers?
Yeah. Yeah, both of them were. My mom works in healthcare and my dad works with cars. He's a manager in
Okay.
like a yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
I mean, it
Okay.
wasn't that hard though, because like that, I did retail for years, and while I was juggling it with YouTube, and then my job we closed because it was a very small shop.
Mhm.
Um, I remember telling my parents, I was like 19, I think at the time, or 20. And I remember telling them, I think I'm gonna follow this YouTube thing, and like, of course, to them, they were like, "You, like, we'll support you, like, definitely," but like, "Are you sure?" You
Or
know?
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And then when
Yeah.
Sam came along and was like, and I'm going to be in a band, my parents are like, sure, you might as well be. Not now, we have two. We have two of them that are
Right,
just doing their own thing.
right. The more the merrier, right? Just
Yeah.
tack it
I always joke with him, I kind of paved the way. I was like, the test baby, because when you're the firstborn, you kind
Yes.
of break the barriers and the rules and test the limits.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And you allowed him to be able to, you allowed him the freedom to pursue his passion rather than like what the traditional, career would
yeah,
suggest.
exactly. And I think the arts, and I say this as well, that's why I love having these conversations and talking with people who are like proper in the arts, like acting, directing, editing, anything like that. That like I guess a lot of the stigma has been broken down around it, but it can be hard trying to convince people that it is a job, that it's a viable income in a way.
Yeah, I mean, especially I'm just dipping my toes into proper social media. And I'm starting to trying to make more videos and kind of bridge the audience on social media with the proper, TV theater going audience. And I'm trying to kind of create a following in both of those worlds. But I think it's, easier than ever to um, be able to gain a foundation in this, creative landscape. But at the same time, because there's so much volume of people creating, it
Yeah.
actually it actually makes it more challenging to kind of, what's your brand? How are you going to stick out? What are you going to do that is kind of unique, that's your niche? And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, right, where you have everyone has everything at their fingertips. Anyone can be a YouTube star or TikTok star, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you still need to have like that brand, that calling that people are attracted to. So yeah, it's a very interesting time to be a creator, content creator, and yeah, wild west in many ways. But
For
I'm glad
sure.
you found your calling, your structure, and I'm excited for your brother. I think they're so young. They're so
Yeah.
young. They're gonna have you know, he has his whole life to continue to play and figure it out.
It is a job, I guess, but at the same time, it's so healthy for expressing yourself and trying to put your emotion, be it music or like acting or producing. Um, Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've always been a campaigner for that. But for you, so you talked a little bit about theater, and it's so interesting because it's a very common thread that I'm finding with people as I do more of these interviews, as we talk more about like how people got their start. Theater pops up a lot, and so does being behind the scenes. So you were you producer for unidentified objects?
I was, I was brought on as a producer. I was reverse engineered as a producer. So, after we wrapped principal photography and we were into the editing room, the director who I had established a really close friendship with, he's now one of my best friends, along with the screenwriter Leland.
Oh,
They're my collaborators. We did another short film back in Colombia this past summer. We're working on another feature together. They went to me and they were like, this is one of a handful of films in the history of cinema that really features a little person in a true leading role. We feel that it's appropriate that you should be a producer on this and be able to actually, own this in a way, not just as an actor, but a creative, generally speaking. And so they brought me on as a producer, and I opened a production company last year called Life Sized Productions, which is very nascent, but I wanted to have kind of a concrete base so that as my career continues to grow, as I continue to be introduced to a broader audience, when it comes time for studios or shows to come to me and say, well, what do you want to produce? What are the stories that you want to tell? I now have kind of a production company myself that I can start to build upon. And so that's kind of the 5 to 10 year angle for me, to bring Life Size as a proper production company and create TV and film that interests me, that comes from my corner of the room. So I'm excited to do that and continue the journey. Yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't know you were so invested in the behind the scenes, like the creation and pitching and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even for the ones who live, I finished episode 2, and I knew that I had done good work. I knew that I had created a fan base in the production. Scott Gimple, I felt like I was a family there, and so family member there. And so I went to Scott on the last day of shooting, and I was like, I haven't told you this, but I have directing in my long-term view as well. I would really love to try my hand. I love street photography. I love the challenge of being able to tell a complete story from beginning to end in one still photograph. And I think it's not so far removed from a moving image, being able to tell that story. And so I went to Scott and I was like, I worked with Michael Slovis, who directed episodes 3 and 4 on New Amsterdam. He was the executive producer on New Amsterdam. It was another TV show I shot for 5 years, and Michael Slovis was also the cinematographer for Breaking Bad. So a bit of a legend in the cinematography world. And so I said, would you mind if I shadowed Michael on episodes 3 and 4? And Scott was like, of course. And so it was really, really so cool to be able to hang up my costume and be able to sit next to the director, watching Denai and Andy work on the other side of the glass. And Michael was so generous in describing like how he would set up a shot, or why he was shooting this first, and he would give me his iPad with all of the notes and the breakdowns, and kind of like a master class, like a detailed master class of what it is like to direct a big buzzy show. And I hope to continue to do more of that. As I work, I hope to be able to finish my work and then shadow direct anyone who's working on the project. And AMC and The Walking Dead, they were just so lovely and so welcoming to that. So I'm really grateful.
And just to hold on to the direction point for a second, does it change how you view media? Working behind the scenes, learning the ins and outs and the intricacies of like how something's made. You sitting down to watch something, a film or a show, do you find
Yeah.
yourself being kind of sucked into I like that shot. I wonder who directed this one.
Yeah,
Or
I'm finding that more and more. I'm finding myself thinking more technical language-y when I watch shows. I don't have the jargon, I don't have like the director jargon for, like what shot what this is and what that is. Like I didn't go to school for directing. I'm very much like on my feet learning, um but yes, I am starting to think that way. Typically I would watch a show or a film and I would kind of only focus on the performance and kind of break down the character and what that actor is giving to the screen, and now it's become like, I guess, a hybridized model of kind of taking into account what the shot is, and if it's a single shot, it's like, okay, when was the last cut, and why it was a single shot, or a lot zoom or whatever, what have you, or what kind of lens what kind of lens that was. Yeah, on unidentified objects we shot what's it called? Pet. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name now, but it was a really special type of lens from this film company, this lens company that is Moonlight was one of my favorite films, and we used the same lens of Moonlight. It was called the T series, this like anamorphic lens, so it feels like really kind of moody and um next
I
question.
wish I could help you. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
It's they make lenses very, very, very Panavision. So
Okay.
Panavision makes lenses, like very, some of the biggest films ever made were shot on Panavision lenses, and they have different kind of lenses, and each lens kind of evokes a certain kind of mood on screen,
Mm,
that subconsciously you kind of see, and just, yeah, breaking it down technically, it's like what story are you telling? Well, that affects the type of lens that you shoot with, and that affects the type of how close you're shooting, and what the frame is, and all of that. Like it's all story. The lighting, the costume, they're all telling a story, and I didn't really start to gain that appreciation until I was on unidentified objects shooting that indie film, and then later on The Ones Who Live, where I can really understand like what's the tone of this film
right.
or this show, because it really is a one cohesive unit. It's not just the acting.
That always fascinates me with creative minds or people who work either in front of or behind the camera. I got to talk to Alan Taylor recently, who produced season one of Interview with the Vampire, but he also directed the first two episodes. And like that, hearing how, like you said, like lenses and like these tiny intricate details will impact a scene. Like I couldn't help myself but like sitting there thinking, how do you enjoy film or TV? Like from a consumer standpoint, you mustn't,
Yeah,
you
it's hard.
know?
I'm sure it's hard. I worked with Alan Taylor. I shot a commercial in 2015. I'm not sure if it's still on, but there's a very popular app game called Hearthstone, and I was cast as like this one of the characters, the Matter Bomber, and I was sitting in prosthetics for like 4 hours. He didn't even see my face. I was just covered in, it was a mess. But I worked with Alan Taylor, and he directed that commercial, and he was really sweet. He directed a couple episodes of Game of Thrones, I know, and he's been
Mhm.
around for a long time, and it was cool to work with him on that production. Yeah,
No
that's
way,
kind of,
what are the chances, man?
hey, it's a small world. That's what I'm realizing, as I continue to get more work and be introduced to more projects and people. It's a small community. It really is. It's like the more you are introduced, the smaller it gets. People know each other, and that's why it's just really important to be a good person, to show up on time, take the work seriously, do good work, because it's a small community, and people want to work with people who do good work, and that's really all that matters. So um yeah, I'm excited that I got to work with him. That was a fun project.
For sure, man. Bringing it around then to the ones who live.
Yes.
I have to ask, and it's such a basic question, I'm aware, but I have to ask, did you watch any of the other, like The Walking Dead or the spin-offs? Were you familiar with the work, with the universe?
Yeah, I mean, early on when I moved to New York in 2013 after college, I would go to acting classes during the day and I'd come back and have Walking Dead viewing parties at night in my apartment with my roommates and, the few friends that I had made, and we would watch The Talking Dead after, and it was like a phenomenon, and I was sucked up in it, and I was like looking at the screen and being like, what is the roadmap to get from this, dirty sofa to that screen? And um, it was a 10-year journey, but I'm so thrilled that I haven't kept up with it over the past few years as my, as work has started to come more steadily for me in the past 5 years. Um, I've had less time to indulge in the things that I've really enjoyed in the past, but yeah, it's so cool to have been once a real fan and then step into the shoes and into the world. And what was really gratifying was appreciating the artistry on set, from the walkers to like the set design. I was telling another podcast, like the only other set that I've been a part of that was that detailed and that lived in was The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon. Um, the Walking Dead has 10 plus years of experience and expertise. So the world that they build is like, you feel like you are in uh an a post-apocalyptic um community, a neighborhood and world. It was dusty and textured, and it was just a beautiful place to work, really. It was cold, but it was really, really beautiful. Yeah, they do such remarkable work there.
I know. I mean, the sets, I'm a big visual person, so like set design,
Yeah.
costuming, stuff like that, to me, I can't imagine, as someone who used to watch Talking Dead and host viewing parties, walking into that world.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really cool. Even
And
seeing Michonne, right? And that, I
oh God, stop.
you, the iconic, I worked with Denai on stage. I worked, that's the only reason I got this job, was I worked with Denai in a Shakespeare production of Richard III in Shakespeare in the Park in 2022. And that's how she brought me on to the show. So I never would have gotten The Walking Dead had I not done Shakespeare, which is kind of remarkable. But I had worked with Denai and I did a show with her, and so I'd gotten to know her and appreciate her as a person. And then to see her kind of transform into this, um, uh, iconic, legendary character in Michonne, was it was like watching your friend blow up. It's like watching someone you and recognize become this larger than life character. And that was really moving to see that and to be able to actually see it face to face. I don't take that stuff for granted. And getting to I hadn't known Andy Lincoln before, but getting to know Andy on set as well was a really beautiful thing. I think there's a reason the show does really well. It's because they have two really, really charismatic, positive, hardworking leads. And Andy is just, you know, just like Denai. He takes the work profoundly seriously. It means the world to him. Every take, he gives his all. And that's like a really inspirational thing. Having done this for 10 years, I think a lot of actors would become jaded in a way and tired, and he, like, just watching him work was like watching an actor show up on the first day on the job, just with just glee and excitement and enthusiasm. And that's the people you want to tell stories with. That's the people you want to be around. So it shows on screen too.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I wasn't actually expecting to love, I wasn't, my favorite character was always Daryl, right? So I knew when his spin-off got announced, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be my show. And I loved it. It was a fantastic show. It was set in France, so like, completely
Yeah,
different setting. And then The Ones Who Live was announced, and I was like, it's Rick and Michonne. They like are the Walking Dead. Like this is going to be
right,
amazing, right?
right. Yeah.
But I didn't, I did not think that it would be as like perfect as it has been so far. I mean, like I'm a diehard fan, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna love it. But it is blowing my mind week after week.
I think that is what's extraordinary about this show is it almost it felt like it almost had outsized larger than life expectations.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that it is delivering, I mean, I'm reading, I'm reading responses, audience responses and Reddit pages and what people are responding to, and it's like a grand slam, being able to feel like they did it, like they're doing it actively. They're like delivering the goods, and that's not always the case. Like it's really hard to do, especially for a show that's this popular, right? That has this wide a net uh, to cast. It's so cool to be, and I've been a part of productions that have sucked. Like I've been a part of theater productions off Broadway that like half the audience leaves at intermission, like terrible reviews. I've been there, and it's not a good feeling, and to be a part of a show that is really clicking and is really hitting on all cylinders is deeply, deeply rewarding. It's like this huge sigh of like, "Ah, we did it, like we did the job." So it's great. I'm so happy for Denai and Andy and Scott, all of them that have worked so hard to deliver this show to audiences, and it's just a beautiful thing that they're receiving it with love. It's all you can ask for.
It really is. And seeing, like you said, all the positive reviews week after week, it's like, yes, they're doing it.
Yeah.
But like for you from the inside, I mean, like from day one, what was the audition process like? Getting the call back? Like what was going through your head?
Well, I'll give you a quick story. I I was up for my first series. I really want a series regular. That's my next goal is to really kind of get onto a show where audiences can kind of fall in love with week after week and kind of develop a fully fleshed out character, like Nat was in one episode.
Mm.
And so I was really close to getting a series regular during this production of Shakespeare, Richard III with Denai. And it was 2 hours before our performance, and I got a call from my agent. I was really close to this show, and it was something that I was getting really excited for. And I got a call from my agent, and they said it was a respectful pass. And it crushed me. I went to Central Park, I sat down, looked at the sky, and I was like, man, this is a low point, right? Like this feels really, really horrible. And I went to Denai during the warm-up. Um, and I was like, I had something slip through my fingers I really cared about. What was it like for you in your early days, like wanting projects, getting excited about projects and having them not go your way before The Walking Dead, before Black Panther? And she offered her advice of what it means to get rejected and how that often leads to other doors that you weren't expecting, all of that. And she turned around as she was walking away and she said, but something's coming. I know something's coming. I thought she was saying like keep going, like keep your head up. I had no idea, like no idea at the time that she was literally saying, I'm gonna cast you in The Walking Dead, because at that time she said that having already known, having worked with me, that she was gonna go to Scott and say, I want Matthew in this show. And it was just an incredible moment of disconnects, and not really understanding what she meant. And a couple of months later I got that email from my agent saying there was an audition for a new Walking Dead show, and I auditioned. I sent the audition in, terrified. I was like, I really want this. And when I heard that Denai was attached to it as an executive producer, I started to have an inkling that that she had some hand in this process. And that made me feel a little better because I knew that I had established a relationship with her. And then a couple of days later I got the offer and was very scared, because I knew that I take my work really seriously, and like very, very seriously. And there's nothing in the world that's more important to me than delivering a good story for audiences. And I think I was scared because I knew how passionate this fan base is. I mean, every TV show in the world dreams of having a fan base like The Walking Dead, like passionate, dedicated, cultish in the best way, and I think I wanted to deliver. I wanted to deliver. And so I spent the next, month or so really kind of prepping, doing a deep dive into what the character was, who he was, and getting to know him, getting the script, reading the script, and meeting with Scott and Denai and talking about the character. Like it was just a great process. It's just definitely one of the hardest shoots I've done in my life, but also the obviously the most one of the most rewarding as well. And I knew from day I pretty like very early on I knew that it was probably a one episode. It wasn't like guaranteed only one, but they were like it's probably going to be a one. So I was like, okay, like that's fine. Always want more selfishly as an actor, but to tell more stories. But I already, kind of understood going into it that this was going to be a guest star. And so as a guest star, you are a guest in someone's home, right? That's kind of the definition of a guest star. You are a guest in their home and you have to deliver the goods and get out. And what was so beautiful about this show is like they made me feel like family from day one. They made me feel like I was a part of the show for, in the original Mothership series, like Scott and Denise, the executive producer, Bert and Bertie, the directors, like I really felt like I belonged. And I'm really that helped me feel like I belonged and that I could deliver and tell the story that I wanted to tell.
That's so gorgeous. It almost feels meant to be. And I don't know what that other show was for you, and that must have stung. But it's like the saying, what's meant to be, it won't pass you by.
Yeah, of
It's waiting
course.
in the wings. And
Yeah,
like with the character, I mean, with the Walking Dead universe, you do get very much used to you meet characters, they mightn't be around forever. You know what I'm saying, as a viewer, which is
right.
why I think Nat's character shocked me so much because in one episode, you had a whole arc. You learned who he was as a character, you got backstory, and at his end, it
Yeah,
stung. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
And it's so unusual to have that much in one episode arc. And for you, what do you think was the moment where you kind of sat and just clicked with him as a character, that you understood him?
That's a great question. There in January, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before principal photography started, I had a meeting with Scott and Denai, and it was in the basement of a basketball arena, which was home base for this production in New Jersey, the Izod Center. Speaking of bands, the Izod Center was once like the mecca of concert stadiums. Like every star in the 80s and 90s that existed went and performed at the Izod Center. Madonna, Springsteen, like all the best, Prince. So we met in the basement of this arena, and Scott gave me the backstory of who Nat was, and I also brought in kind of my research, my R&D that I did on my own, and we just talked, the three of us. We worked through the episode, worked through Michonne and Nat's relationship, and that I think it was that moment that I realized that I had a pretty good foundation of who this person was because of how comfortable I was talking to Scott about who Nat was. Because Scott is an encyclopedia, a walking, talking encyclopedia of all things Walking Dead. That's why he's the showrunner.
Mhm.
And for me to feel so easy saying this is where Nat went to college. This is when he lost his mom. This is when he fell in love with fire, like
Yeah.
that is when I felt like I was like, yeah, I can go in and talk about this person as if I know him. And I think Scott also, felt that in that meeting and Denai too. It was like, okay, like you have this character. You know who this person is. Now it's just about going out and sharing his story, which is the hardest part. But the more you know the character, the more you have an understanding of who this person is, how he walks, how he talks, his reasonings for why he acts the way he acts. Like the deeper you can understand that, the easier it is to go out and justify the words on the page, you know.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So it was somewhat of a collaborative effort then regarding.
Oh, completely, completely. And I think for, not to boast, but I think Scott is really can be really intimidating because he's so knowledgeable and because he's so strong in his understanding of what this world is and all of the characters' backstories. Like it's his world. And I think for someone who didn't have as good a grip on their character and what they felt, how they felt they fit, I think it would have been like, oh yeah, sure, or oh okay, yeah, oh okay, let me, okay, okay, oh really, oh I didn't know that, or and for me it was like, no, I don't think so. Like I think Nat actually, and I did that, we it was very much a back and forth, and Scott received that like, oh, maybe you're right. And that's why it was so great, because it was collaborative. It's great. That's the best form of storytelling, is when you can have a discourse, a back and forth about choices, so that I feel safe making those choices on screen. So yeah, very much a collaborative effort here. Yeah.
I think as well with how he went out the way he did, it was just such an emotionally charged moment. But what stuck with me from that whole episode, first of all, yes, Rick and Michonne got back together, and I was like, I'd say my neighbors heard me screaming. Do you know what I mean? But it was so out of nowhere. Your Nat's end, I mean, it really did just pop out of nowhere. But what stuck with me most about his character has been the lighter. You get that final image of Michonne with the danger lighter, and it's like, oh shit, there's the sign of a good character. And I'm not just saying it because I'm on call with you. The fact that anytime now I see that lighter, I'm going to think of the backstory. I'm going to think of Nat. I'm going to think of that time. I think it was a year, right, that Nat and Michonne spent together. And I don't know, man, just to reiterate, like the fact that a character from one episode arc could do that, that is
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah, but it's also really good writing. Like that's good
Yeah.
writing. I didn't come up with the image of the writer, like that's on the page. That's why I keep telling you, or not you, but when I keep telling people, I made a TikTok recently, it's like that's why it was so important that the writers went on strike last year, that they got their agreement. Like without like you cannot let AI create these stories. AI will not create these stories. These stories have heart, and they only come from beating hearts, from real human beings. And when you have good story, good backstory, something that has a beating heart to it, it makes my job measurably easier, because all I have to worry about is delivering the lines on page. With bad writing, it takes a lot more muscle as an actor. You have to justify a lot more things because the writing isn't there to hold the weight. But when you have really good writing and stories that make sense, then it's just like taking the express lane, it's like full speed ahead. You can just sit in the driver's seat and go and take your character for the ride and not worry about bumping into things. Um and I think with that lighter, I think that is the most beautiful image of Nat. And I think the story of Nat, and perhaps the story of The Walking Dead as a microcosm, is we all need that fire that was lit for us to help keep us going. Nat's lighter, he kept flicking that lighter because he needed a constant reminder that someone out there loved him and supported him, and it was Danger. And Danger literally and figuratively lit the fuel to his fire to keep him going, that he survived this long into this desolate landscape. And so when Nat passes on the lighter to Michonne, it's this human passing of the baton, that I am going to now fuel you and help you. And so now when you have hard times and when you feel like you're behind the eight ball, you can flick that lighter and remember that someone else gave you that fuel to keep going. And I think this fire is a great image, um, to let people know that other people are out there looking for you, looking out for you, and helping you, and fueling you, to get to where you want to go. So it's a great image. They did a great job with it.
Definitely, and especially because fire is kind of the aesthetic of this season,
Yeah, exactly.
that
Exactly.
fits perfectly.
It's literally embedded into the fabric of what the themes are about this show. So that's a good point.
I've kept you long enough. I don't want to keep you any longer. I have one more final question for you. Like you said, I wasn't aware that you were trying to get so heavily involved with the socials and, that side of things. But for you, you must have seen online, what has the fan response been like? Getting such an outpour. And I mean, I don't know if you've been looking, but there has been an outpour of love for
Yeah.
Nat after that episode.
I'm going to get a little personal here. Um, when The Walking Dead introduced my character on social media about a month ago, I flipped through the comments on their Instagram, and it was not great. There a lot of comments were, and it was surprising. Frankly, I was like, wow, these are that initially that was my character was not received well, and that hurt, because I was like, I gave my heart to this show, and I really wanted to deliver, and it felt bad that some of these fans were closing the door before I even had the opportunity to stake my case, in this world. And then after the show aired, it was like a 180, like a complete 180 of this, like you said, this absolute outpouring of love and reception and warmth. And I think, like I said, this is a very dedicated fan base. And so I think a lot of people saw a little person, and they were like, how is a little person, how is someone with dwarfism surviving in The Walking Dead, right? This brutal warrior landscape. And I think, again, to reiterate and go back to the writing, like, when you have good writing and when you create a compelling character, people are going to be willing to become invested in and support that character, whatever that character looks like, whatever physical disability they may have, or however they may look. Like, if the character feels authentically written and lived in the world, they will go along with it and become invested in it. And that was kind of that experience that I've had in the past month, was like, this is what happens when you have a good team around you, that and you do good work, that audiences are like, yeah, hell yeah, absolutely, go Nat, so it's been kind of a journey for me, and I feel really, really, really grateful that people have received me and invited me into the family, and it's been very, very rewarding to feel that. And I'm so glad, because that's all I want to do, is like, literally, that is all I want to do in my life, is to tell good stories and let people know that they're not alone in the world, that their feelings are valued and validated, and that they belong, and that they have a voice, no matter how they feel, or how alienated they may feel, or how left of center they may feel, they belong. And I want to continue to do that.
So far, you've done an absolute incredible job. We've only seen 3 episodes so far. And like I mean, I've said this, I do videos on The Walking Dead. I've said it in any video since then that Nat so far has been one of my favorite aspects of the show. And
Thank you.
I'm sorry that you had to read those comments or go through that in the beginning. And
Yeah.
excuse the French, but fuck them. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you did get to experience that 180 of
Truly.
everybody. Just, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's truly lovely. I feel very, very, very appreciated, and it is reciprocated. I appreciate them. So you're in for a treat for episode 4. I shadowed Michael on episode 4, and Denai wrote that episode herself. She's a Tony nominated playwright, gifted storyteller, on and off screen. So I'm really excited for audiences to see this next episode. I think they're gonna yeah, it's going to continue to bring the ones who live to new heights, and I'm so happy that this show is getting the love that it deserves.
You and me both.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for sitting down and talking. I really do appreciate it. Like, this show, this universe, it's a huge deal to me and to so many of the people I know. But I know you're a busy person, so thanks a
Yeah.
million for sitting and chatting. And thank you as well for asking about my brother's band. I'll be sure to tell him, he'll be well delighted.
Oh yeah, keep going, baby. That's it. That's all. Step by step.
Definitely. But yeah, again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy whatever else you get up to with your day.
Thank you so much.
No
Appreciate
problem.
you.
And that is it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. wow, just I've had Nat as a character kind of in my head since his episode, and honestly, I think that like I said at the beginning, it's clear now why. You know what I mean? It's the same reason that I love Michonne. The same reason that certain characters stand out to me, that the passion just like oozes out of the person. So I am just so happy and thankful that Matthew sat down and had a talk and shared some stories, experiences. I will link his Instagram down below also. So if you're not following him on socials, I would certainly recommend going to give him a follow, keep up with his career. Yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you all soon.